Hi.
Hi.
Hey, girl.
We have a special guest today.
Brenda.
Brenda.
Woohoo!
I don't understand why
Brenda.
that is. Hello.
So today, it's a long episode. It's a doozy. Sorry. Like we said last week, I think I said that I was going to do the DC Snipers. So that's what we're doing. So just to give a little context, Brenda is my sister, and she might have some insight into all of this, and that's why I wanted to bring her on here. Are you gonna say anything?
I don't know if you were gonna just jump right into it or what.
Well, I mean, I can jump into it because it's a long one.
We kind of just chit-chat before.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not gonna say what I have to add because, again, I already told you I remember. And it's not...
Have you listened to any of our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or
I've listened
YouTube?
to a couple, but my...
She's real supportive
I listened... I try to be supportive.
Which favorite?
Why is everybody tearing her apart?
My God. She's the middle child. That's middle child syndrome.
You are awful. She's a guest on our show.
Brenda.
Hostage.
Brenda, what is your favorite Let's Get Paranoid podcast episode?
Please just make her feel better and tell her it's one of hers so that she stops picking on you.
I don't...
She hasn't listened enough to know they're all her favorite.
Right.
There you go.
I like
better
Good
answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good answer.
Okay. Are you ready to get into this?
You ready for a card?
Yes. We'll do a card first.
Card?
Lay it on us.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says, wake up, kick ass, and repeat.
All right. So wake up, kick ass, and repeat. Are you ready to dive into this? It is a long one. First, I kind of want to I know sometimes we get off topic, and I know sometimes we're a little more silly, but because this is really serious, we might not have so much silliness going on. So let's get in our time machines and go back to 2002. I did not realize that this was as long ago as it was. I don't know. So some of the details are so vivid in my brain that I said when I looked at it and it said 2002, I was like, what? But here we go. Going back to 2002, can you remember where you were? Me? I was 8 years old. Where were you? Frederick, Maryland. Living with my parents, going to third grade. I'm pretty sure it was third grade. A local elementary school, and I'm not gonna name that school just for privacy reasons. Brianna was in kindergarten.
I was a little
baby.
Brenda was in kindergarten. Yes.
Why are we calling her Brenda?
Because that's her name.
Nickname. It's actually her nickname's Brenda Shizu. And then Drew is Drew Regard Sims. Don't ask me how I made it up. Loki, my dog, is Lokaboke.
Oh my.
Yeah, I got nicknames.
Torie.
Yeah.
I hate to know what you call me.
I don't have a nickname for
we
you.
only take one letter off of your name.
Would it be the extra S at the end, perhaps?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Good. Love
When I
it.
was 8 and lived in Frederick, Maryland, I played lots of Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex with my best friend at the time,
Yes.
Ashley. My
Hi, Gambit.
siblings and I. Hi,
You see
Gambit. My siblings and I played Walt Disney Magical Racing Tour. Do you remember that game, Brianna?
Absolutely. I talk about it at work and everyone thinks
I listened to the soundtrack the other day with Drew, and he's like, "Why are you listening to this?" And I was like, "Look, just shut up." Or
He
we
didn't
watched
remember
the-
it? Did he not
Yeah,
remember
he
it?
did. Yeah,
Oh,
he did. Or we watched Queen Bee play Legend of Legaia, which is the best game ever. And then she would put those like claw clips on her hand, and her and my brother would put those claw clips on her hand, and they would fight with their Rossaroos.
why do I not remember that?
but
She used to put the
Oh wait. I thought no.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
my.
anyways,
That was
we
comical.
rode our bikes.
He was playing that. Remember, he would put the Rossaru on his arm.
Yes, and he would pretend
was
it was
jumping up and down on the bed, and he kicked your dad in the back so hard he dislodged a kidney stone, and your dad was that was his first kidney stone, and it was
oh my gosh.
screaming pain for days. Yeah,
Listen,
but that was all because of a Rossaru.
I thought that was a game.
What?
Never mind.
What?
You forgot that they were called Rossaroos?
No, I thought that was a different game. I was
Okay.
doing a lot of the running with this.
Yes, the Tenchu, but that wasn't until we moved to Chambersburg. We rode.
I thought it was this.
It was this. We rode our bikes around the neighborhood, and we played in the playground that was practically in the backyard. But
remember that time your brother went outside into that playground and he was stark naked running around?
No.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to, I know we get sidetracked.
Because I'm
Okay. So.
Well, we're gonna get serious now. We're serious.
Yeah. Stop cutting me off. In October of 2002, fear captivated the surrounding areas in and around Washington, D.C. because of a string of attacks from the Beltway Snipers, also more commonly known as the D.C. Snipers. They were John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo. At the time of the shootings, John Allen Muhammad was 41 and Lee Boyd Malvo was 17. Do you know anything about the DC Snipers?
I feel like I know absolutely nothing. So this is all going to be new to me.
Oh,
I was in
man.
We're gonna
second.
educate.
I didn't pay attention at all.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You didn't what?
I didn't know that there were two. I thought there was just the one.
Nope, there was two.
The young boy looked up to Muhammad as like a father figure.
And they
which is why
actually,
he was very easily led to the dastardly deeds.
yes, and I'll get into a little bit more. I don't really cover them too much because,
we don't want to remember them.
yeah. So I'm going to rewind just a wee bit further back. So we were in October, but we're going back to February of 2020. Oh, sorry, that's forward. We're going to February of 2002. 21-year-old Kenya Nicole Cook was shot and killed at her aunt's house in Tacoma, Washington on February 16, 2002. Her aunt, Isa Nichols, was linked to John Allen Muhammad because John Allen Muhammad and Isa's wife, had been good friends. And Isa had encouraged John Allen Muhammad's now ex-wife, to get a divorce. And this is kind of where everything starts.
Yes, yes. Keep that in mind about the ex-wife down the line.
Yes, this is kind of where everything starts. And according to an article on CNN, Lee Boyd Malvo told his psychologist that this location was specifically targeted and it was a test.
So
The deaths
from Washington to
well,
DC.
they go all over the country. All over the country. The deaths following
They were
Kenya
caught in
Cook,
Frederick, Maryland, though.
they were caught in Myersville, which is
Yes,
15
on 70.
minutes. Yes.
Mhm. At the rest stop.
Yes. The deaths following Kenya Cook are also known as the preliminary shootings, and those range from her death in 2002 to September of 2002. So the preliminary shootings are February to September, and they left 7 dead and 7 injured, and they spanned over multiple states and cities, including Tacoma, Washington, Los Angeles, California, Tucson, Arizona, Clearwater, Florida, Denton, Texas, and Hammond, Louisiana.
Now, wasn't that place in Washington? That's where they found the bullets or something, right? In the tree.
I'll get into that later.
Okay, so you're saying there was a preliminary spree before the actual
Before the
DC
DC area, yes.
and the 17-year-old was involved in that as well, or was it just
Yep.
Muhammad?
Nope.
Okay, with both of them.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep. And 17 people lose their life in total, like between the preliminary and the DC, 17 people lose their life. During this cross-country murder spree, because realistically that's what it is, Lee Boyd Malvo has since come forward and claimed John Allen Muhammad was raping him.
Seriously?
Yes, he has come forward and said that he was being raped by John Allen Muhammad. Yeah.
Now the boy did not get the death penalty, but the man did.
Right. And I kind of go over that at the end. But yeah. So the first shot that is accompanied with these attacks occurred on October 2nd, 2002, around 5:20 p.m. in Aspen Hill, Maryland. A bullet was fired into a Michael's craft store. Though a cashier was nearly hit, no one was injured, no one was hit, no one was hurt, everything, they just kind of assumed it was a stray bullet and they didn't really raise the alarm. A little over an hour later, the same day, 55-year-old James D. Martin was shot and killed crossing the parking lot of Shoppers Food Warehouse in Wheaton, Maryland. James was a programmer analyst for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And according to Google Maps, it is roughly 4-ish miles and can take about 10 minutes to get from the Michaels to the Shoppers that he was at. On October 3rd, this was the deadliest day of the shootings. Within 2 hours, 4 people would be gunned down by the snipers starting around 7:40 in the morning and going well on into the evening.
And they were at the gas stations, right?
There's a couple
those ones occurred at the gas stations. Yeah.
Yeah. At 7:41 a.m., 39-year-old James L. Buchanan, also known as Sonny, was shot and killed. Sonny was killed while mowing grass outside of Fitzgerald Auto Sales in Rockville, Maryland. At 8:12, 54-year-old Prem Kumar Walekar, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name, he was shot and killed while pumping gas in his taxi at a mobile gas station in Aspen Hill, Maryland. 25 minutes later, at 8:37, 34-year-old Sarah Ramos was killed while reading a book at a bus stop outside of post office in Silver Spring, Maryland. Actually, yes, Ramos. When you Google BC Snipers, one of the pictures is, I mean, she's covered and everything, like you don't see her or everything, but it's her. Yeah. Over an hour later
that's kind of awful for the families.
Yeah.
You know?
They don't give families any privacy whenever it comes to stuff like this. Like, they plaster pictures of, you know, their bodies on the internet or their blood. Like,
it's
or cars or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a pretty picture. I mean, really, no murder picture is, but over an hour later at 9:58 a.m., 25-year-old Lori Ann Lewis Rivera was shot and killed while vacuuming her car at a local Shell gas station in Kensington, Maryland. After waiting nearly 12 hours at 9:20 p.m., 72-year-old Pascal Charlotte, again, sorry, he was shot walking to a bus station. He lived for about an hour, but after an hour, he eventually did pass. These deaths had a few things in common. The victims were shot from a distance, and they were all killed by a single bullet. After striking, after striking, the perpetrator usually disappeared, and witnesses were said to have heard a popping sound and saw a white box truck leaving the scene in a rush.
So back in those days, then that sent them on a rush for looking for box trucks. So we lived down there, and everywhere you would go, you would be looking for these box trucks because you thought that, and you never knew it was random. You never knew where they would be. So it was all over the
Everybody was on edge. On October 4th in Fredericksburg, Virginia, 43-year-old Caroline Sewell was shot in the chest around 2:30 p.m. at a Michael's craft store while loading her vehicle.
No, this wasn't the same Michael's that he shot earlier. No.
However, she was only wounded. While it was severe, she did survive. Actually, M from And That's Why We Drink, which is, I know I've said it before, it's my favorite podcast. M recalls their mom, Linda, being at that Michael's around this time of the attack. The episode is episode 91, Mad Lib Disease and an Everlasting Faint, where M kind of goes over stories with Linda or tells stories of Linda, paranormal stories and true crime stories. Shortly after 8 a.m., 13-year-old Iran Brown was shot in the chest as he was arriving at Benjamin Tasker Middle School. Luckily, his Aunt Tanya Brown had dropped him off at school and was still there. And she was a nurse, so she was able to come in, and she rushed him to the emergency room. He was in critical condition.
And that was a big deal back in those days. And
yes,
the killers were actually having conversations with the police.
Yes.
Writing letters and things, and they kind of alluded, if I remember right, they alluded to even your kids aren't
harming
safe.
Children. Yes.
Yeah. And then wasn't there a tarot card found up in the grassy knoll area or something around the school?
Yes. He was rushed to the emergency room, and he was in critical condition, and he sustained damage to several major organs. He does survive. he survives. He actually testified, I believe, at the trial. Um, at the crime scene, the tarot card death was found. Ironically, though, enough, instead of the card portraying actual death, the card meaning behind the number 13 card is actually like it can actually be seen as a positive card, um, because it usually means change, new beginnings, or transformation. So it's it's not a spooky card.
So, but he was trying to scare them because, I mean, the first thing you think of when you see the death card, you think, oh my God, somebody's going to die. But
Yeah,
that's just the end of something and the start of something new. So if you
Mhm.
knew tarot, you would understand. If you didn't, you were frightened. And, there's a lot of religious people in that area as well. And so,
Mhm.
first of all, tarot was like scary to begin with. And a
Yeah.
death card, oh my.
You should
Clutch
probably
my
be more
pearls.
concerned with the with the tower or even judgment, but they must have really thought they were intelligent because they were, spooky and gave the death card. But they
But
wrote,
that
"Call
wasn't the
me."
intention of all these shootings, though. He was going to get to where he was going to be. The reason why he went on these shooting sprees, he was just
He
making.
actually wanted he actually wanted to shoot 6 people a day for 30 days, if I recall correctly. I think that's the number. I didn't write it down because again, I didn't really get into them. I I I don't it sounds terrible. I don't care,
The story
honestly.
shouldn't be about the murderers. The story should be about the people who were injured or lost their lives.
Right, and that's what
Focus
I'm
on the
kind of
good, the people that lived.
well, I'm focusing on the victims. Yeah. They wrote, "Call me God, fuck you, Mr. Police, and do not release to the press" on the tarot card. Unfortunately, though, that card was released and it was made public by WUSA TV, and then it would be on the Washington Post the following day. So, even though we were 45 minutes to an hour away from the majority of this, my elementary school, well, our elementary school, Brianna and I's elementary school, started going on high alert. We couldn't go outside for recess, even if the weather was
Well,
nice.
that
Like we
they
were,
told they didn't know where they would hit next,
yes,
and we were in a metropolitan area, and so you didn't know. So yeah, and I remember you guys walked across the street to the bus
hmm.
shelter,
Do you
and
remember not
we
going
had to
outside for
walk.
recess?
What?
Well, I was
No.
I was from kindergarten, so I don't really remember why we didn't go outside. All I knew is that
Well, I didn't know why we didn't go outside, but yeah,
Well, and you weren't allowed to go outside either at home. I didn't allow you to go
yes,
outside. And when you
nope,
did go to the bus, I kind of made you walk like a zigzag just
yeah,
across the street. And that was Halloween time. That was going into Halloween
mhm,
time. So we were concerned, are you even going to be able to go trick or treating?
yeah.
I remember going trick or
Yeah,
We did
because it
go
was
trick
done
or
by then.
treating. Yes, we couldn't go outside for recess, even if the weather was nice. I remember the windows being boarded up. They didn't really have like paper or anything on the windows, but they had like those clear totes and they had like the number blocks and stuff in them, the ones that you can learn how to multiply or whatever. They had those up against the windows, and I didn't know what was like. Again, I'm 8, so I'm not really comprehending why
Oh, I didn't
the
know that.
the
treat.
the windows had stuff in front of it. So, I mean, we could see light, but you couldn't see out. Um, Even the playground at home was unusually empty. And usually there was like kids all over the playground. Like Ashley and I would play at the playground. There were 2 other girls that we would go and play at the playground with. We lived in an area where it was very secure and I mean, the backyard for everyone was pretty much this playground. Um, I can't necessarily pinpoint when my school started to make us not go out, like when they started to enforce the no recess rule and, you know, when all of this started, but many schools started like they were on high alert at this point because of this shooting at the school.
Yeah, after
Uh,
that boy got shot at that middle school. Yeah,
yes,
watch your babies. Yeah.
yes. People started not allowing their kids to ride the bus and would take them to and from work or to school in their car. Like they were just very concerned. Uh, on October 9th, shortly after 8 p.m., 53-year-old Dean Harold Myers was shot and killed while pumping gas at a Sunoco gas station outside Manassas, Virginia. On October 11th at 9:30 a.m., 53-year-old Kenneth H. Bridges was shot and killed while pumping gas at an Exxon station right outside of Fredericksburg, Virginia, sorry. Around this time, because we're not allowed to go out for recess, and we're riding the bus into school, and I remember hearing on the bus about all these attacks and these shootings, and I remember coming home and seeing it on the news or hearing it on the news, and while I didn't fully understand the severity of it all, because again, I'm 8, um, all I could really comprehend was that someone was shooting people in the area that our dad worked. And to make matters worse, my dad and his then coworker, who, side note, reminded us kids as Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Do you
I,
remember him?
I've been trying, like, every single time, like, I think of him, I ask Dad what his first name is, and he gives me a first name, and, like, I'll try to look him up, but I don't find anything, and it really bothers me because I just want to
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
why I didn't want to add his last name.
it's
I
my
was just like,
favorite.
I'll just say Dwayne The Rock Johnson because that's who he reminded us of.
Well,
They were driving into DC one of the weeks that all of this was going on, actually. And I distinctly, it's very, very vivid in my brain. I remember crying and begging our dad not to go to work because I was terrified that something was going to happen to him. Like, absolutely terrified. And I actually wrote, the anxiety is real, people. Also, this is coming from the girl who refused to go to Pop Yes because somebody was murdered in there.
like me with Bob
Do you
Evans.
want me to tell? Do you want me to tell you this? Oh, Bob Evans was after that. Yeah, that was during that same time frame too. So, do you want me to tell you the story of Pop Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Torie was a little girl. She was in kindergarten. We lived in Louisiana, and we had to drive like 40 minutes to get to anywhere where we were located at that time. And there was a town, and we drove there, and there was Popeyes. And so Torie was just learning how to read, and she would like, Pop Yes, Pop Yes. I don't want to go to Pop Yes. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Pop Yes. What's this Pop Yes? Right. So we were driving, and we'd go buy Popeyes, and she's like, there it is, Pop Yes. Popeyes, Pop Yes. So she didn't know how to read, but she was putting it together. So she didn't want to go to Pop Yes to eat because something bad had happened at a Popeyes somewhere that she had seen on the news. But let me tell you, moving backwards, when Brenda was born, we lived at Fort Hood, which I guess is not Fort Hood anymore in Texas. And we used to eat at oh my gosh, what was that place? In Waco. There was a place in Waco. It was oh my god, what was it called? Well, anyway, there was a mass shooting there. Look it up. The mass shooting in Waco, Texas. Yeah, we would go there all the time to eat. But that was after the mass shooting, but I didn't know about it
Is it the
And
place with the big swordfish?
No, not that place. No. Oh my God, it's a kid. It starts with an L. Luties or loot. I don't know. But anyway, you were actually potty training, and the bell would go off, ding ding, and your grandma was there, and your grandma says, "See, somebody went to the potty. Every time somebody goes to the potty, the bell rings." We tried. It didn't work. Sorry, I got off topic.
It's okay. Gas stations started putting tarps up to shield people from being seen. And some people would even like duck and hide behind their car and get out of sight while they were pumping gas, just because a lot of the majority of these attacks they're out in the open, really. Around 9:15 on October 14th, 47-year-old Linda Moore Franklin was shot and killed in a covered parking lot at a Home Depot in Fairfax County, Virginia. Linda, I don't know if you know this, Linda was an FBI agent. Like, she was an FBI intelligence analyst, and there was a witness to her death. However,
she was
she was an FBI intelligence analyst, and there was a witness to her death. However, it was found at the time that the witness was lying, and they were charged and convicted with interfering with an active investigation. Which,
how do you
I mean,
about being shot?
I don't know why you would lie about something like as serious as this, but I don't know. On September 21st, around 8 p.m. in Montgomery, Alabama, 52-year-old Claudine Parker was shot in the chest and killed during a robbery. I'm going back. We're in October. We're going back to September. She was a liquor store clerk, and her coworker, 24-year-old Kelly Adams, was shot in the neck. Kelly luckily survived the shooting, and the connection to the shooting was not connected until the DC Snipers until roughly 4 weeks later, October 17th, and that's bringing us back to the timeline. Fingerprints were found and matched at this crime scene and the shooting at the Benjamin Tasker Middle School. After no attacks for 5 days, at 8 p.m. on October 19th, 37-year-old Jeffrey Hopper and his wife were at a Ponderosa. They were in the parking lot in Ashland, Virginia, and he was shot. His wife called out to a passerby to call 911, and Jeffrey Hopper survived the shooting. While investigating, a letter was found from the shooters demanding $10 million. Along with the demand, there was a threat made to children and schools. A phone call was also made to the authorities and traced back to a payphone. On the call, the caller admitted to another murder in Montgomery, Alabama, and they were boasting. This is the murder that happened in September that I just told you about. They admitted to that murder, and 2 men were arrested on October 21st right outside of Richmond, Virginia, at a payphone at the same intersection that the call was traced. One of the men had a white van, and they were outside of the gas station. They were subjected to cavity searches, and they were placed in federal custody where they were found to have no connection to the shootings. They were found to, however, be illegal citizens, and they were deported. The following day, October 22nd, shortly before 6 a.m., 35-year-old Conrad Johnson, a ride-on bus driver, was shot and eventually succumbed to his injuries in Aspen Hill while standing in his bus. Later that same day, Chief Moose read a portion of the letter that the snipers had left, revealing, "Your children are not safe anywhere at any time." October 23rd was a significant day in the investigation. Even though there was no shootings, like, people are still terrified, and they're actively working. The law enforcement is actively working to capture these guys. Ballistics were able to confirm Conrad Johnson as the 10th fatality in the DC sniper shootings in Tacoma Park. Oh, wait, sniper shootings. In Tacoma Park, Maryland, authorities searched a yard with metal detectors searching for bullets, metal casings, etc., and they found a tree stump that was believed to be used for target practice. Oh, remember those fingerprints that I had mentioned? Like I had just like briefly, I mean, I kind of focused on them, but I just kind of like nonchalantly went over them. Those
No,
fingerprints
I don't
that
remember.
were well, those fingerprints that were lifted from the Montgomery, Alabama shooting and the Benjamin Tasker Middle School shooting matched Lee Boyd Malvo because he was previously arrested in the state of Washington. They dove a little deeper into his background and they found
So
out
using the tarot card, the death card, actually did signify something because it signified the beginning of the end for
that. Yeah, you could say that.
Mhm.
Authorities found out he was extremely close to a certain John Allen Muhammad. So now they've got the link. Authorities had discovered a New Jersey license plate linked to John Allen Muhammad's 1990 Chevrolet Caprice. There were radio patrol cars that had seen the car several times at the shooting locations. So they had seen this 1990 Chevrolet Capri and they never called it in because they were hell-bent on the white van. Like everybody was on the lookout for a white van.
Well, if you think
And
about it,
And again, remember, this is the DC metro area. There's a lot of commerce. There's a lot of trucks. There are a lot of white cargo vans down there. They're
yes,
everywhere.
they were hell-bent on the white van tip.
now,
And
Yeah.
huh?
I said even now, everything is a white van.
Yes.
Everything is a white.
Another reason that they never put two and two together was because the license plate had never indicated any connections to any type of criminal activity. So they were never stopped. So, like, talk about being right under your nose. Like, I'm sure looking back that these cops were like kicking themselves in the ass for having them right under their nose. A la Ted Bundy, on October 3rd, on October 3rd, which, was the deadliest day in these shootings, in Washington, D.C., the car was stopped for a minor traffic infraction. So they had these guys at one point. The deadliest day of all these shootings, they had them. They had them over and stopped them 2 hours before they went on to fatally shoot Pascal Charlotte. I left this bit of information out on purpose, really for suspense, but witnesses had also said that they saw the white van fleeing, but they also said they saw a Chevrolet Capri fleeing the area. Which, okay, you hear like anybody who hears gunshots when you're not expecting it, the first instinct you have is to run or get cover, whether you're in a car or whatever. So the box truck that, fled the scene maybe just heard these and got scared shitless and, I mean, you don't
Or
know.
maybe he was a speed demon anyway, and he was already speeding, and it just happened to be that he was speeding in the direction that the person saw him. Had nothing to do with, leaving a scene.
In fact, a blue Chevrolet Capri was looked into near the Jones Fall Expressway in Baltimore. This person's driver's license was from Washington and the license plate was from New Jersey. The occupants were never questioned and the car was never searched. So, like, they had them right under their nose the whole time. Eventually, the authorities switched. They made the switch from the white box van or the white van to now look out for a Chevrolet Capri. Look out for a blue Chevrolet Capri. It's night and day. You know, you're looking for a white van, and now you're looking for a specific make, a specific model, a specific color. Like, they switched. And I remember hearing all of this playing out. Like, I was terrified. So one day I had gotten home from school or I was on the bus. I don't remember, but I remember hearing on the news or on the radio, they believed that the suspects were in Frederick, Maryland. And I remember crying. Do you remember? I remember crying to you.
They actually went to Hagerstown, Maryland, from what I understand. They were in
Really?
Hagerstown. Yes.
They believed the suspects. I remember hearing Frederick, and the only reason Frederick is so well. I remember coming to you and crying and asking if they were close to us, and you were like, "No, they're in Fredericksburg. There's nowhere. That's nowhere near us." Liar.
What do you tell a kid? Like, seriously, I was frightened for you guys. I didn't want you to go to school because, you know, I didn't want you getting shot on your way to the bus or on your way into the school or while you were in school or on your way home or, you know, like, but so at some point you just have to
did good. Yeah. You have to lie sometimes.
You do have to. It was, yeah.
It wasn't so much a lie, it was just like not the truth.
Which is her thing. She'll give you
the truth.
Some of the truth, but she won't give you the full.
I won't give you
a liar.
No, I will not give you a full lie. There has to be some truth in what I'm saying.
That's called gaslighting. You were like, no, it was Fredericksburg, not Frederick.
Yeah,
even though I distinctly
it was a lie of omission.
It was
where you're trying to protect your child who you're like scared to death for your children, but you can't, you know, you can't protect them when, you know, and you're trying to.
You did okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. Just give you.
Oh well, you know, it's okay. I'm used to
it being a game.
Brenda's used to being picked on, so.
No, but like I remember, like they made us when we were going into school. Like the bus driver would say, "Okay, it's time to walk in zigzags," and I just thought it was a game. I just followed the kid in front of me.
I don't remember that though.
Keychains swinging from my backpack, doing all these zigzags. I just remember it being a game. I also don't remember
that.
The windows.
Did you have those were those little radio things that you stuck the things in and it played music? Those keychain things.
Clip-its.
Victoria had.
Oh, Victoria had those. Oh, well, she was the favorite.
Well, no, she would let me use it sometimes. It just wasn't all the time.
Oh, but you had the Tamagotchi.
No, I had the Tamagotchi.
I didn't have any of. I had the Pussycat CD that was scratched on the bus the one time.
Were you the what?
Oh yes, the Pussycat. That wasn't later. Wasn't that later though?
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't
later. That wasn't even in Frederick because the Pussycat dolls weren't a thing until we moved to Chambersburg.
Well.
Okay. Anyways, let's get back to. Let's get back to Frederick. Let's get back to. Yeah. At 3:15 a.m. on October 24th, 3 weeks after the beginning of all of this, like in the DC area, authorities found John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo sleeping at a rest stop in Myersville, Maryland on I-70. Actually, like you said, every time we pass the rest stop, I'm like, hey, that's where the DC snipers were found. That's where every time Chris and I go to Frederick, I'm like, that's where the DC snipers were found. Hey, I don't know if I told you, that's where the DC snipers were found. So, um, at 3:15 a.m., they were found. Arriving first on the scene, Trooper First Class D. Wayne Smith blocked off the exit by parking sideways in between two tractor trailers. As more cops arrived or more troopers arrived, they were able to seal off the exit. And
Wasn't it a truck driver that found them and called it in, and then they didn't they kind of maneuver their trucks a little bit until the cops got
yes,
there or something?
yeah, well, yeah. I didn't see that the truck driver called it in, but I I do remember hearing that a truck driver called it in. Um, so they did all of this, all these troopers arrived. I mean, they were sleeping, but they were able to do it so quietly that they knew none the better. Um, so a tractor trailer driver, Ron Lance, was trying to leave, but the exit was blocked, and his tractor trailer was commandeered and used by law enforcement, and they successfully like sealed off that exit completely. And thus is when SWAT moved in and they made the arrest. They broke the windows and everything. In the Chevrolet Capri, a stolen Bushmaster 223 rifle with a holographic sight and bipod were found in the trunk. The back seat was modified to allow modified to allow access to the trunk, and a hole was found to be cut out of the trunk, thus giving John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo complete concealment to carry out these shootings. The rifle was linked to 11 of the 14 shootings, and one of those shootings included one where no one was hurt. The trial for John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo took place in the fall of 2003, where both men were found guilty of the two shootings in Virginia. John Allen Muhammad received the death penalty, and Lee Boyd Malvo received life in prison without the possibility of parole. They also went to, I believe they went to court multiple times because there was multiple shootings. But on September 16th of 2009, which is my anniversary day, not the year, obviously, the date to carry out the death penalty for John Allen Muhammad was set. Despite attempts for a stay of execution, it was denied. John Allen Muhammad's attorneys also requested clemency from the then governor of Virginia, Tim Kaine, but they fell on deaf ears. They were denied. John Allen Muhammad was put to death by lethal injection on November 10th, 2009 at 9:06 p.m. and was dead 5 minutes later. He had no final words, and 27 people sat in on his execution, including family of his victims.
But you haven't gotten into his wife yet.
I
Are you getting there?
didn't see much about his wife.
Well, that was why he did everything. He wanted to kill his ex-wife. He had two children. I think they were both boys, but she lived in that area. He wanted to kill all these people so that he could eventually go and shoot his ex-wife and make it look like it was part of this DC sniper, but it was actually him. You know what I mean? Like, he really thought this whole thing out.
Well, like I said, he wanted to kill like 6 people a day for 30 days, and then they were going to move on to phase 2, where they were going to shoot a police officer in Baltimore. And while at the funeral for the cop,
I think that's where the wife lived. Actually, I think the wife lived in Baltimore. Come to think of it, but I mean, Baltimore, DC, that's all close.
In the area. Yeah, they wanted to go to Baltimore, shoot a cop, kill a cop, and then go to the funeral, have multiple explosives. That was phase 2, and they were going to blow up the cop's funeral so that they could have mass casualties.
Well, we
But
dodged a bullet there, didn't we?
yeah, because the Eighth Amendment actually prohibits the death penalty or execution for crimes under the age of 18, and Lee Boyd Malvo being 17 at the time of his crimes, he is still incarcerated. He was given 10 consecutive lives without the possibility of parole. Now, some of these were eventually changed due to constitutional changes, but again, he was a minor when these crimes took place.
I'm sorry.
In
I don't care. I don't care. He was 17 years old. He was old enough to know better. Yes, he was abused. Yes, he was molested. Yes, he had a crappy life. But again, there's a lot of people that were molested or had a crappy life, that were abused, that don't go out and mass murder people.
yeah, like I think I think he shows a lot of not remorse, but he does. I'll get into a little bit. He was denied parole in 2022 in August, like just a couple, well, a little over a year ago. In August of 2022, he was denied parole. He is in a supermax prison, and he has since said of his crimes, I was, quote, I was a monster. If you look up the definition, that's what a monster is. I was a ghoul. I was a thief. I stole people's lives. I did someone else's bidding just because they said so. There is no rhyme or reason or sense. End quote. So, like, he does seem to
Right.
show
Well,
some kind of.
his brain wasn't fully developed. I get that. I get that. But you do know right from wrong.
You do
And
know right from wrong.
now he's
At
paying the
least that.
penalty. And I'm glad he sees the error in his ways, but he still has to pay the consequence.
Yeah, at the end of the
At
day,
least
like,
at least he's not at least he wasn't put to death. I
yeah.
am glad that they didn't put him to death.
But he did at 17, he knew right from wrong. I, you know, in total, what are known as the preliminary hearings, there were 7 deaths and an additional 10 in the DC snipers shootings. 7 were injured in the preliminary hearing or the preliminary shootings, and 3 were injured in the DC sniper shootings. Either way, like regardless, the lives of 27 individuals and their families have been irrevocably changed.
And the murderers' families as well.
Well, yes, yeah.
You know?
Their lives have been changed and rerouted in such a senseless and ruthless kind of way. And for that reason, and pretty much that reason alone, that's why I didn't want to dive into these guys. I didn't want to I mean, I really just wanted to get the gist of what happened with these guys. Like, we shouldn't be remembering the murders.
Well,
We should be
because
remembering.
you remember things from when you were a child, but you don't remember the actual all the stuff because you were an innocent little child. And so as an adult now looking back on it, now some things that you've seen or experienced are like making sense. You're putting all the pieces together.
Yeah. Um, I didn't want to end, or I didn't really want to talk about these guys too much because, again, I don't think I like people romanticize and I don't know.
Yeah, they romanticize
They
it.
focus too much on the perpetrators and not enough on the victims. So many
And
times
that gives the perpetrators what they want, the attention.
Yeah.
yes, so many
You know.
times do we remember Ted Bundy or,
Joffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer or John Wayne Gacy or Richard Ramirez. We remember all of their names for the heinous and just awful crimes that they committed against people, but we don't remember the people that actually like went through this. And uh, that's really why I personally while I find all of this interesting, sure, me personally, I probably will never really like cover them. Like I don't really now I I will I watched The Night Stalker on Netflix and um I did watch the Dahmer with Evan Peters. I will and I don't want to say indulge, but I will watch this stuff, but like as the podcast goes, I don't really want to talk about those kind of people because most people know their stories and whatnot. And me personally, I just want to talk about the victims. Like I really want to be an advocate for the victims. And if I can have somebody remember at least one person or one of the victims, I think that's doing more justice than remembering, the murderers. I mean,
Because the victims aren't forgotten.
yes,
The victims
that's
are
the
forgotten by
biggest.
their mothers and by their children and by their, parents and brothers and sisters and spouses and stuff. They will never be forgotten by their families, so they shouldn't be forgotten by society and
And
just
by
be a
all
foot
means,
in a murder story.
I'm not I'm not like downing any podcast or anybody who talk or who indulges or ingests this stuff and they learn all this stuff about these serial killers and whatnot. Me personally, I would rather focus on the victims and um yeah. So like I said, because of that, I didn't want to dive into these guys. I didn't want to end on them. I wanted to finish by remembering the victims who are no longer with us. And that would be Kenya Nicole Cook. She was 21. Jerry Taylor, 60. Million Walder Merriam. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing these names. 41. Claudine Parker, 52. Hong M. Bollinger, 45. James Martin, 55. James Buchanan, 39. Prem Kumar Welkar, 54. Sarah Ramos, 34. Lori Ann Lewis Rivera, 25. Pascal Charlotte, 72. Dean Harold Myers, 53. Kenneth Bridges, 53. Linda Franklin, 47. Conrad Johnson, 35. And there were 2 other deaths that were not made public. So on findmygrave.com, there is actually a virtual cemetery for the victims of the DC sniper shootings. And you can go in and you can, I don't know if you're familiar with how it works, but you can leave like online flowers pretty much. And you can go and visit that. And some of them have like little stories and stuff about the victims. They're humanizing them essentially. Um, and there's also a memorial dedicated to the DC sniper shooting victims in Wheaton, Maryland at the Brookside Gardens. And then in 2014, an additional memorial was constructed in Rockville, Maryland in the Government Plaza. And that's my story, my topic.
Very good. Very, very well done. Good job.
Thank you.
I would
Brenda, are you going to come back? Brenda, would you come back?
Maybe.
And sit in with us?
If I know more about the subject, because like I said, all I remember is walking in zigzags and thinking it was a game. I do remember, my kindergarten class didn't have like stuff on the windows. But like, because like in my kindergarten classroom, like it was kind of like a courtyard almost. So like you couldn't see anything like above or whatever, but I mean, I guess that doesn't really matter. But they did have like the windows darkened. So like you couldn't see inside of the room.
At the very least, they must have had the blinds down. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember being able to see light, but I could not see outside.
Well, the kindergarten classroom had a door that went to there was a little playground and a court area, like a courtyard.
Oh, so there was nobody could have shot you guys unless they were in that courtyard.
Correct. Because the school was so high.
But I mean, okay, so you guys didn't do active shooter drills back in those days yet, did you?
No.
I don't know.
I didn't do an active school shooter drill until I was like in, I think, 9th grade, to be honest.
I was homeschooled by that point, so I don't even think I did one.
We only did one my 9th grade year, and I remember I was in our science teacher's classroom. And it was just when they moved the 9th graders.
We shared a lot of teachers though.
We did, but it was you know who. She was wonderful.
Oh, the blonde. Yeah, she loved you both. She thought you guys were great. Yeah.
So I remember being in her classroom, and that's when they moved the 9th graders to the high school.
Yes.
So we had like the hard like,
and you would have been on the 3rd floor up there.
Yeah, we had the lab tables that were like really, really heavy duty.
Yes.
And I remember
those are a bitch to move.
Anything like this happens, you go all the way to the back or in the middle, because the back, it's all windows in the back. So you wanted to be in the middle,
the lab tables are back there. And then
underneath the lab table, because it had like an edge that came off of the counter, because it was like this big, it was like thick. Like
slate. It's slate. Yeah.
Yes.
That sat.
Heavy.
And I remember doing that once, and then remember my senior year in high school when that kid brought a gun to the school?
No.
Yes, because remember they didn't say anything. Yes, they didn't say anything until after everyone was home.
They brought the gun.
And you were livid. You were livid.
I'm livid again.
I was in Mrs. class, and Miss L. That was the child development area.
Yeah.
And she told us, because we also had a courtyard behind there too.
Yes, you did. Yes.
But she told us, because the home ec was right next to us, and then it was us. Yes. And she told us, she was like, if anything like this happened, like she almost made us go on the roof, because there was a ladder that we could climb and get to the roof. And I remember, I was one of her favorite students, and I said, with all due respect, F that, I'm going to get my brother. And she can't let you leave. And I said, I'm going to get my brother. And
actually,
then they released it because they had gotten the guy and the gun and the bullets and got him out of the school. It was right.
They sent like an email, or they don't even think they sent an email. Everybody came home, and then
I don't remember this. You would think this is traumatic. I would have remembered it.
A call came through, and they had said that they had confiscated a gun, and they were dealing with it accordingly. But they waited, and they waited until everybody was home.
Well,
and
they
actually
apparently what happened.
Devil's advocate, they had.
There's nothing you can do.
And you don't want thousands of parents.
You don't want mass panic. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what would have happened when 9/11 happened. We all went to the schools and got our kids.
Yes. Actually, if you remember correctly, I remember it was lunchtime, and everybody, like, people were getting called out left and right, and we didn't know what was going on. And our cousin actually is the same age as me, and I remember there was like a picture of a frowny face because if you got caught talking, your name was put on this list because they wanted to hear the names that were being called. And she must have, I don't know what had happened because I didn't sit with her, but she must have said something or whatever, and she got her name written on the board. And I went out to recess because I didn't hear my name. I went out to recess and they were running all over the playground and they're like, "Where's, and finally they found me and they're like, "You're supposed to go home, like you're going home." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I
And
went
you didn't
home
know.
and
And you
I didn't
normally
know.
I would tell you, hey, I'm picking you up.
I think
Your,
I think
your uncle and I went to the schools together. Yeah, he picked up Jimmy
no,
and Keith
no, Grandma
and
was in the
Will.
Jeep with you.
No,
I
Uncle
remember
Scott.
Grandma.
Grandma was home with me and Drew because
Uncle Scott
Oh,
was in the
okay.
car. We drove the Jeep. It was Uncle Scott. He picked his kids up, and we picked you up. Yep.
and Grandma
Well,
was
Jerry had said something about, oh, so there's something in New York or something, and I was like, oh, I really hope it's not I was in second grade. I said, I really hope it's not the Statue of Liberty.
Aww.
And then we were supposed to go downstairs because Grandma and Pappy had this finished basement, and we were supposed to go downstairs, and we weren't supposed to watch the news because, parents were trying to keep everything from us. They
Well,
probably don't listen to this anyways, but I'd be anxious to know if they remember any of this. But I remember being down in the basement and we were watching like SpongeBob or something. We were watching Nickelodeon or Disney Channel, and it was 39 and 40. 39 was Cartoon Network and 40 was Disney Channel. And Keith was like, I want to see what's going on. And he flipped to the news and the towers. I remember seeing the towers fall, and all of us, I don't remember if Brianna was down there, but I remember Jim.
I was
Keith
3, right? You were 3.
But I remember because I was upstairs with Grandma. You were downstairs in the basement. You were talking to Dad with Drew. And I had my bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. And me and Graham were watching Fox News because that's what we did in the morning. And the plane hit the second tower. And I remember looking.
The first tower.
Yeah, because I think the second tower was
whichever one that was.
And I saw.
Yeah, so whichever one was hit second, I remember I was laying in front of the TV.
No. You probably saw the first tower because by the time the second tower, I was on the phone to your dad, and I think I had sent you downstairs by then, and we were watching it because I remember saying to your grandma, "How are they going to put that fire out?" And your grandma looked at me, I don't know how they're going to put that fire out.
I remember the three of us and handing Drew to Grandma because I was eating my breakfast and I was watching it. I was watching the news. I was laying in front of the TV that was on the floor, the old TV.
Yeah, in the basement. In the basement, or oh no, that would have been upstairs. Yeah, because we were upstairs. Yeah.
And I remember I was eating my breakfast. It was a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, and the plane hit the one that was caught on video.
Yes,
and
that was
turning my head around and looking at Grandma, and her eyes were like this. And then that's when I remember you were freaking out. You were on the phone with Dad or something.
Because he was in Louisiana, wasn't he?
You came up and you handed Drew to Grandma, and Scott came and you were like, we're going to get the kids. And then you were out the door. And then Graham was trying to change the channel. I remember that.
Yeah, we were not allowed to watch it. And I don't remember if you were downstairs in the basement with us at this point because, well, you would already know what was going on. The kid was like, I want to see what's going on. And
I think Brianna was downstairs with you guys because she was old enough that I didn't want her to really see anything. And she was always really emotional and like very empathetic and would feel the energy. And I knew that would affect her. So I sent her in the basement with you guys with the older kids. I think Drew stayed up. I think Drew went back and forth between hanging out with the big kids and hanging out with mom because he was like a year and a half.
Well,
Yeah, he wasn't that old.
I remember flying up the stairs, all three of us running up the stairs because we saw the one tower fall, and the face of the woman who had all the ash on her.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, like, that is like engraved into my head. I can remember seeing her just covered in soot and ash, and all three of us, at least the three of us, ran up the stairs, and you guys were not happy that we had found out what was going on.
Right. Right. Well, I think the boys were in 5th grade, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were. I think one was in 4th and one was in 5th.
No, the boys were both the same.
They were the same age.
Oh.
They were in the same grade. But they might,
Oh.
but they were older. They were, yeah.
Yeah. Well, America went through a lot from September 9/11 until, October of 2002. Because I even remember 9/11 of 2002, everyone being on guard
We
and
went
being
to your
terrified.
school. We went to your school that year. And I have pictures somewhere in a photo album. It was a beautiful, beautiful sunset. It was after school. It was September 11th. And we all went to that school, the elementary school that you guys went to in Frederick, and, held candles and sang. And yeah.
But I remember I remember someone saying it's the anniversary. I wonder if we're going to have like a repeat or whatever. And even base, even they were on high alert, and they were on lockdown. I remember that because they usually just waved us through on the bus, but they were even searching the bus and whatnot. Like, I do remember that.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean,
I don't.
You were 5. You were a baby, so.
Yeah, but I remember 9/11 because of.
Okay, but that was super traumatic.
I remember
that was on the news all the time, 24/7 for weeks.
Yes, for weeks.
Yeah, it was. It was all day.
There was no getting away from it. There was no protecting the kids.
No, there was
and you know
none.
what? Those were the weeks that everybody. It didn't matter what color you were, what nationality you were, male, female, old, young. Everybody was kind to each other. Everybody was an American, and
everybody looked out for each other.
Yeah, and
well,
I wish we had some of that goodwill.
I had some of it.
At least the Washington D.C. area went through so much within a year from 2001 until 2002. Just from 9/11, because the Pentagon got hit, and then a year later they were dealing with snipers.
Yeah, yeah, and in that time frame also was the anthrax too.
Yes,
you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah. All right. Well,
good job, kid. Brenda,
thanks.
come back some other time. Brenda,
yeah, maybe.
Brenda, come
maybe,
back.
What? I'm here.
Listen, maybe one day you can come back and you can tell us a true crime or a paranormal or whatever.
Yeah, or you could tell us a spooky story.
I have plenty of paranormal stories that's happened to me.
You and
there
Cass
you go. We can have
the paranormal team.
Yes, you and Cass can tell us paranormal stories.
You and Cass can be the paranormal team, and when Torie and I can be the true crime team.
Well, I know a lot of true crime too. Remember, my client
well, we got to even it out.
Was murdered.
Who?
One of my clients. Remember me telling you about her?
No.
The 17th.
Well, wait. Let's finish the podcast and then you can go on and say whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Also iHeartRadio. Like, share, send us some love. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you liked this. Let us know if you want to see Brenda more.
I want to see Brenda more.
I know, yeah.
Brenda, I have a Valentine's gift for you here. Oh, and your pappy's supposed to be coming next weekend, and he requests
Wait,
your
let's finish the
presents.
podcast before you
Oh.
start talking about this. Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Dying.
Let us know if you want to see Brenda more. I
I
don't know
do.
where Cass went. I don't know where Cass went, but
Something happened and she had to get off. She said so.
oh, okay.
She'll be back next week.
Well, we missed you, Cass.
We love you, Cass.
Hopefully you
With
learned some
us.
not so great stuff. Unfortunately, sorry. Actually, you
C-A-S-S
missed out. You missed out on a
Cass.
really bad episode and like
She
bad.
always misses the bad episodes. I think she does it on purpose. She wants to avoid the bad, depressing episodes.
Yeah, you missed a doozy. All right. Well, that's all I got.
What do you have to say for yourself, Brenda?
What is there?
Her internet
This
is
is the
so
first time I've
bad.
ever been on a podcast. What?
What do you say? What do you have to say?
What do you have to say for yourself, Brenda?
Yeah.
Are
You
you
break
putting me on
spoons.
trial now? I don't know what to say for
Oh,
my...
I just want to say hi. Hi, Brenda.
Bye, Brenda.
Bye, Brenda.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.